It's time to make our thumbs a little greener. On today's episode of Wisconsin Wonder Garden, I wanted to highlight our brand new Monstera Deliciosa and give you guys a very quick care guide on how to make sure this thing is thriving as good as it can inside your house. I'll be going through several main points, and these are the points with timestamps if you want to jump to that specific section if it's something you're looking forward to. Otherwise, just go ahead and watch this entire video. So I got this plant from Weeds in Cedarburg, which is my go-to place for some unique tropical house plants, and very happy with this one. When I saw it, I was so excited because it's quickly becoming a very popular indoor house plant for people all around the world. Now this plant is native from southern Mexico to like South Panama, although now it has really spread, like I said, throughout the entire world. It is actually mildly invasive in some areas like Hawaii or other tropical climates, which it loves because of how large it gets and because of its vining ability. This is really a vining type plant, so as it gets larger, people will put moss poles in the planter to help it climb up, and that helps the growth and the health of the plant overall. So that's something I will cover in a future video once it gets to that point. In today's video, we're just going to go through the care, as well as it's time to repot it, as this is what I bought it in, and we're going to put it into a container like this. The first thing that I'm going to go through when it comes to care is the lighting requirements of this plant. This is not too picky of a plant and can thrive in many different areas of the home, although you want to provide as much indirect light as possible while making sure that it's not getting any very strong direct rays from the sunlight. Otherwise, these leaves will start to yellow and burn. Thankfully, that is a good and easy sign to know that it's getting too much direct light, is that discoloration. You'll see it yellowing, maybe curling over on the edges a little bit, and that's a sign to maybe move it into a different area of your home. But typically, like an eastern facing window would be ideal, and that's exactly what we have here, along with some of our other supplemental lighting that we have via grow lights. So I think it's really going to thrive in this area that we have here. Next up is watering. Typically you're going to want to water this once a week, although that can vary a little bit depending on what direction your window is facing and how much light it's getting, because the amount of water that evaporates out of your container might increase or decrease depending on where it's at. Before you do water it though, you just want to reach in with your finger, the good old finger test, about 1 to 2 inches, and make sure that it's moderately dry before watering it again. If it is mostly dry in there, you're good to water, but if it still feels pretty damp, you would want to wait a few more days at least before you water again. When I do water, basically I'll just soak the whole container until water is coming out of the bottom and filling up the lower basin. That's a good way to make sure all of the roots have been in contact with the water that it needs in order to grow. So since we're going to repot this today, I gotta know what kind of soil this thing likes. Well, actually, these really enjoy about a 50 to 75% regular soil mixture, along with that 25 to 50% of peat moss. So you don't want to do straight soil, you don't want to do succulent or cactus soil. Do a regular potting soil mixed with peat moss. That's what these guys really love, and if you guys give them that, they're gonna thrive inside your home. So what about plant food? Well, I recommend feeding this once a month from the spring to summer months, and then once it hits winter, this doesn't actually need any fertilizer or food whatsoever. So just once a month feeding from the spring through summer, and you'll be great. An additional care tip for you guys would be to wipe down the leaves and get that dust and dirt off of there. Since these leaves can really grow to be quite large indoors, just wipe those off periodically whenever you see that they're really starting to look a little bit hazy or dusty. That way the plant can really photosynthesize the way it's supposed to and can absorb all of the nutrients from the sun or grow lights or whatever you guys have. So whenever you guys do your house cleaning, just stop on by your Monstera Monstera to make sure it's clean as well. One more thing I want to talk to you guys about with this plant is toxicity. While the fruit of this plant is actually edible and quite interesting looking, got a picture of one right there, the plant foliage itself is mildly toxic to pets and humans. So you want to make sure if you've got little guys running around the house or something like that, that they are not grabbing pieces of this and consuming it, or you want to make sure that your pets as well are not getting into this plant. While I do have both of those, so that's something I have to keep my eye out for to make sure that my son and daughter don't get sick from this, as well as my little dog. Alright, that's it guys. This is a fairly simple plant to keep inside the house. If you guys have anything that I did not tip off on, just leave a comment in the section down below and I'll make sure to help you guys out. Now it is time to replant this thing into our brand new home for this. You're going to want to repot this about once every year, maybe less if you don't want it to grow as much, but if you want to get a lot of growth out of it, the key to that is just bigger and bigger pots. The larger of a pot that you have this in, the faster it's gonna grow. And trust me, these things grow. You're gonna be amazed by the transformation that we see in this plant within a year. So here's our soil mixture. We have about 50% regular soil and 50% peat moss, as well as a little bit of perlite mixed in there. Now, you don't have to do the perlite if you don't want to, but this was actually soil I had previously mixed up because this is the mixture that I use for my succulents. So I just threw that in the pot here to use for our Monstera. Then repotting, of course, is quite simple. We're just going to squeeze the edges, flip it upside down, pull it out. You can see that the roots are a little bit bound here on the bottom, but up towards the top of the soil it's not too bad. So this thing is just about primed for repotting. If it gets like this in your next size pot, that's about when you would want to repot it. So I'm going to break off some of these lower roots, just like that, so that way they can grow down into the soil. Dig a little bit of a hole for those roots. And then I'm going to fill in soil around the rest of this plant. Just slightly patting it down in order to make sure it's nice and tight and all that soil isn't just going to sink down once we water it. Okay. And just like that, we are set. This plant is ready to grow. The very next thing that you're going to want to do is water this thoroughly after each of your repottings. Whether you're doing that once a year or not, just make sure that when you do repot it, your very first watering is going to be very thorough. Yet make sure you don't have water sitting or standing in your container for very long. So make sure it does have the required drain holes. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the many different videos that we have on the channel. Please subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this content. And stay tuned as you guys are going to see this thing explode. We'll catch you guys in the next video.